Lakeshore,
Here.
Midstate, Marine Park,
Here.
and here from NTC. Northeast
We're here.
and Northwood, Waukesha County,
Here.
and Western.
Helen's here.
All right. So, as we take a look at the agenda, are there any additions or revisions that we need to consider? Hearing none, we'll move on to announcements. Does anyone have any announcements at this time? No? Okay. We'll move on then to the minutes. Looking at the November 22 minutes, that feels like forever ago. Is there any discussion on the minutes from last time? And if not, we'll look for a motion to approve them.
I can move to approve.
Sure. Thank you, Ellen. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. November 22 minutes are passed. So first item, it's kind of exciting, is the discussion of our faculty survey question bank. We're kind of looking at whether, now that they've been packaged, whether or not this is something that we want to share out with different peer organizations. There's a couple ideas listed on the screen right now. One thought is that perhaps we could post the packaged survey template on our WISPALS website as a way of sort of promoting our organization, our consortium, and sort of what we can do as a consortium. So I would just like to open it up for discussion on that point, whether or not anyone has any concerns, any ideas, if we feel like that's the direction we want to move.
I do want to clarify too, we wouldn't be sharing any of the responses that we got. We would just be sharing the questions and sort of the general messaging and process that we use.
Maybe Andy or Melody, can you talk a little bit about if we would share that out, what that process might look like in terms of sort of reaching other organizations and or what that might look like if we posted it on our website?
Yeah, I think so this idea comes from the faculty user needs work group in their very final meeting. We put all this work into making the survey, and members of that group felt it might be useful to other folks who were serving academic library settings. And the idea was that we could kind of have it live on our website, and then we could point folks to it from various peer organizations. So ALA units that might be interested, WACU or COOL, the Wisconsin academic library groups. If we wanted to go, it could really be shared to any of those, like our combined network, right? Where we would be able to have reach. So I think project managers would certainly be able to get it in front of, WACU and COOL. Those are familiar acronyms to everybody, right? COOL is the UW librarians and WACU is the independent and private colleges. And then if you, as members of this committee, participate in other groups that you think might be interested in this, we could work together to share that out too. That makes sense?
That answered my one question, which was really, did the people that created this feel like it should be shared? I don't see why it's a bad idea to share that. Would we be looking at putting something like a Creative Commons license on it, or we would do all rights reserved and kind of keep it on our website? What's the thought on that?
I think the will of the fun work group was the Creative Commons to be as sharey as we all possibly could. So, but I could clarify that with them as well, see how they feel about it.
Yeah, I was on the fun group and I got that sense as well that this is meant to have like a far reach and be as useful as a tool as possible. So if it creates like derivatives and people can adapt it to their needs, like that's kind of the format we wanted it to be in when we were sharing it. So.
Would a form of sharing this out also make sense as like a, well, I have no idea what Wall is doing,
Yeah.
but as as maybe like a poster session or even a full-blown session at a conference at some point? I'm not sure.
Ashley, do you remember, did that idea get floated? I feel like it did, and it just sort of didn't go anywhere.
I was just thinking that I had never thought of this idea, so maybe it did and I wasn't at that meeting. But I feel like, I mean, certainly if there was some sort of session that you would probably take the helm, Andy, because I feel like you did most of the work in terms of like constructing the actual surveys. And then we did more of the work of like picking them apart and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's an idea for sure. I don't know if others in the group would be interested in doing that.
Well, we can kind of put that in our pocket and know that it's there if the opportunity comes up. But it sounds like there's kind of general thumbs up for sharing this a little more widely with some partners.
And we do have a message from Catherine in our chat, and she says this sounds like a good idea to me. Our question is, would we announce it on an ALA listserv?
I would leave that up to you all if it feels appropriate. I don't participate in any of those listservs, so I don't really have the great context for it. But if you do and it feels like a good fit, I would say, what's the harm in sharing?
Okay, wonderful. I have no idea. Andy, is this something we need to like take a vote on, or?
No, I don't think so. I think I will maybe work on some of the details with the fun work group just to get it posted, make sure it looks how we want it to look. And then I'll do the work of crafting up some sharing language that you all could use as a template if you are involved in a listserv that you think would like to see this. And then I will post that to Basecamp, and along with like places that I will share it. And we can go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds lovely.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so annual meeting, that's coming up pretty soon, May 22nd. Some of you might have seen I posted a survey on our Basecamp for food. We all know food's important. So that's just to help us with the catering. It's sort of a per plate thing, so we can know what your preferences are and who's coming, maybe especially from Wills. Annie, Melody, you can kind of share that out further if there's other Wills people or their guests or things coming. I did want to let everyone know, so the board of directors of WISPALS, the new chair is our college president here, and Dr. Jeannie Warden. And since we're meeting on our NTC campus, she would just like to pop in for 5 minutes, say hello to everyone. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up about 11 o'clock-ish on that day. She'll be popping in just to introduce herself and say hello. And with that, I think I'm gonna turn it over to Andy to see, we can look at the agenda and just talk about ideas.
Great, thank you. So I shared a draft of the agenda and I have just a couple of questions. I also have a tickle in my throat. One moment. Sorry about that. Okay, so we have kind of two general areas of this agenda separated by lunch. And the first is sort of looking into the future and brainstorming and sort of blue skying and thinking about the things that you at your individual institutions will be working on in the next 1 to 3 years. During lunch, we'll take a break. We'll do some kind of, Melody and I will be doing kind of some presenting to you while you eat, so you can, you know, enjoy lunch as well. With our kind of regular business, approving the minutes, looking at the orientation packet. If we need some time to revisit the RFI, we'll do that. And then the afternoon would kind of be more about sharing challenges, like what are some obstacles you're facing that you would like to harness the collective wisdom of the group around. And then optionally, Katie, can we get a tour of?
Yes, we would love to give you a tour. We actually just finished renovating our library again. And so it has some pretty neat features. We would love to give you a tour of that. And if anyone is interested in seeing other areas of the campus, I'd be happy to broaden that as well.
Great. So, and Katie will give us a tour of the library and potentially more. And as Katie noted, we will have a special guest at 11 joining us. This is the also president of the WISPALS board who will pop in to say hello and introduce. So this is what we've laid out as a first draft. I do want to put a little context around this. Normally in previous years with the annual meeting, it's kind of launched or been a component of an initiatives planning process, which we are not doing this year, but I do want to note that Melody and I are going to be keeping our ear open, and we hope you will too, for things that we might want to collaborate around, and we can give that brand new like project planning template thing that we developed a test run. So there's no sort of expectations that anything will come out of this, but it might. And Melody and I would follow up later in the summer if we had any ideas, and you're welcome to sort of also be listening for that. And if you think there are places that we might want to do a little collaboration around, just bring it to the group, let Melody and I know, and we can bring it to the group. So how is this looking? How is this feeling? Does this feel like a good, productive day? Build some community, have a little fun, have lunch, enjoy one another's company. Any suggestions for changes or additions?
Andy, do you want to talk a little bit too about the idea of whether or not we will invite additional guests?
Yes, that
During
was my very next question. So previous meetings, we have invited guests largely from non-WISPALS technical colleges. So Madison College, Milwaukee, MATC, Nicolay, there's the word. And there actually is some interest from Nicolay, at least, in attending again. So I wanted to put it to you all and see what you thought. If you thought having guests at any or all parts of this meeting might be useful, if you have any concerns about it. And if you do want to move forward, what's our kind of parameters for inviting folks?
So I've never been to one of these annual meetings in person. What has kind of been the pattern in the past? Like if you do invite guests, do they come for the whole day? Is it just like they come for kind of the back half of the day? What usually happens?
Yeah, usually we've had sort of most of the day would be around crafting initiatives for the coming year. So we would be doing like small group conversations and sticky notes and prioritizing, and that didn't feel, because that was very sort of intro WISPALS, that didn't feel terribly useful for outside guests. And then the latter half of the day, we'd often have sort of a freewheeling conversation. Sometimes we would have specific topics. I think one year we talked specifically a lot about OER. And then another year we talked a lot about assessment. So it has in the past been sort of a targeted area of the agenda that felt, ripe for folks outside of WISPALS to participate. Other than the lunchtime, which is very businessy in this agenda, it doesn't feel like there isn't a spot that a guest could join. So this is just kind of a slightly different content for the meeting.
Okay, cool. Thank you for the context.
No problem.
I actually have a question, Andy. As we were kind of talking about this, I'm thinking about the crystal ball section. When we're talking about what we might be working on the next 1 to 3 years. Do you feel like that will be more WISPALS focused in terms of thinking about, like, just amongst our constituents, getting an idea of what other libraries are working on? And you mentioned the project planning template. Will there be kind of a point in time where we're actually sitting down and having a chance to like fill those out if we want to? Because I feel like that could potentially be more of a consortium focus, or are you envisioning that as being a bit broader?
In our mind, I think it was a bit broader, and that second piece of it, where kind of thinking about how we might work together, would be after the meeting. So this would just be the opportunity to kind of blue sky and brainstorm and talk out loud and not put a ton of structure around anything that might come out of the conversation, but just sharing the information is the point of the conversation. I think there's flexibility, but again, I want to be respectful of the boundaries of your work with capacity and project planning, and knowing that there's not as much capacity to do that work as there has been in the past. So that's what we were thinking. I'm super happy to hear your thoughts if there are other things you'd like to do during that time.
I also just wanted to throw out there, when Andy and I were kind of coming up with a structure, that this can be changed, right? So if you did decide that you would like to invite guests, but just for a portion of the time, we can change the structure and either fit them in with, if you want them there with a part of the conversation of what are you going to be working on in the next couple of years. We can restructure the conversation, the agenda, to fit them in, and we can move that at the end of the agenda or something like that. We can be flexible, we can move things around.
I'd be comfortable if we had guests, maybe throw it out to them. If they want to do the whole day, I'd be fine with that. I mean, it'd be kind of nice, lunch, and treat them to lunch for making the trip. I don't know, just being generous here for some reason.
Catherine has a question in chat too, on whether or not we'd want to invite a speaker on different potential LMSs. Do you mean ILS, Catherine, maybe? Or continue to attend those webinars on our own? Or are you changing LMSs at your institution?
LMS is different than ILS.
Right, that's what I'm wondering. Yeah, ILS, okay. Melody, what do you think about that?
No,
That's
we're
okay.
not at that. Yeah, we're not at that point yet.
That does bring up a good question, though. In the process, would we want that some part of the day focused on that? And is that something that we're okay having guests for?
I'm sorry, Katie, you're kind of breaking up a little bit. I don't know if it's your headset.
Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yeah, you sound a little bit more clear. Can you
All right.
repeat your last question?
Yeah, so I said that just brings up a good question. If we need at all any time during this day when we're all together to discuss anything related to our ILS RFP process, and if we're okay having guests there during that part of the day, or we need that on like the beginning or end to sort of have any dedicated time for that.
Yeah, so we do have it on our agenda today to talk a little bit about that process and on the timeline. We still have a lot of time. I don't think we're gonna need a lot of time at the annual meeting to discuss the process and to make any decisions. But we do have some time built in, at least during lunch, but we could always move the RFI conversation either to the front or, the end of the day if we wanted to, or, to accommodate guests if needed.
To me, on this question of having guests the two items on the agenda are really like big picture, very general conversation things, and I would be more than happy to get perspective from non-WISPALS members on either of them. Since they're, very general things. So yeah.
Would it be appropriate to just throw, once we have an agenda that we're happy with, to share that with people we might invite and say, you are welcome to attend any and all of this, and then just have them let us know when to expect them so they can participate in a way that they think is best for them, but we also get a chance to hear that outside perspective?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
To me.
I love that idea as well, because I could see some individuals maybe couldn't commit a full day, but if they wanted to, then we've opened it up for that. Got a thumbs up from Hans.
Okay, great. Well, let me, Katie, ask you a kind of on the fly question here then. Let's say that Melody and I go back to the drawing board a little bit with the things we're doing over lunch to try to pull those WISPAL specific things and put them either at the beginning or the end of the day. Would we be able to be flexible with, if we could give you a time, but assuming lunch might happen anywhere between like 11:30 and 12:30, is that going to be okay? Okay.
Oh, you mean, yeah, I mean, lunch can be anytime.
Okay.
Like, I'll just tell the catering people when to come.
Okay, great. So I think we'll do that. We'll try to take some of that stuff out of the lunch period. So that's more of an open time for folks to have conversation. And we won't ask you to be working over lunch, and we'll try to move that to either the beginning or the end of the meeting. And then that frees up a whole chunk of space for guests to join. I'll try not to mess with the 11 o'clock time though, Katie, knowing that that's already set with Dr. Warden.
Thank you. I'm sure her schedule is much more packed than mine.
Yes. All right, so we'll do that, and we'll just send that to you over Basecamp so we can get that kind of a thumbs up from you all, so we can start inviting folks and they can get it on their calendar for May. And I think in the meantime, then, if you have specific ideas of things that maybe fit into these two big broad questions that we've put out there, if you have specific kind of prompty questions you'd like to hear from the group about, feel free to send those to us. We can put in, right, these are big questions, and we can have kind of that more specific questions within them and get the feedback that you're looking for too. So we'll provide an updated version of this shortly, and then the door is open for any ideas you have as well. Sound good? Great. I didn't take notes on any of that, so I need to get some things down real quick here.
Okay, well, Annie's taking notes. Melody, would you like to launch us into your topic on ILS exploration?
Yeah, absolutely. So I shared or Andy shared out with the documentation an RFI. It actually, I meant to just do kind of an outline, but as I was doing the outline, it was easier just to write it. So I just drafted something. I don't have don't worry if you haven't read it or if this is the first time you've seen it. I have no expectations. I don't expect any response or feedback from you all. But what I wanted to review and talk with you about today is and actually maybe it might be easier if I start with the timeline. So just as a reminder, let me bring the timeline up. Because as a reminder, we're in year 3 of our process. So here is, okay, so here's our timeline for our exploration process. So the idea is that we'll do an RFI, RFP, RFI, and have that go out this by June, ideally, and then have quotes come back this late summer, and then have demonstrations this fall, this winter, and then hopefully make a decision. Then by early, well, ideally July, so another year from now, July of 2024, and then then we'd have a full year to work on any migration if necessary, to then go do testing and go live in July of 2025. So that's the timeline. So we have lots of time. So as far as the RFI goes, what I did was I took, if you remember last fall, I had you all update the wants and needs list that we created back a couple years ago when we did this exploration process. I think, oh gosh, was that 2018? Whenever that was, when we went through this last time, you updated all of that. So I've taken that information and essentially put it in here. I'm just gonna quickly run through this. So here I did put the timeline in here, and there's instructions for responding. But so I did put kind of like an assessment in here, and all of this information that is in here is from the wants and needs list. So I would like you all to review this, but what I think might be the best thing and the best process is, this is a PDF, obviously. I have a Google Docs version. Why don't I throw that in Basecamp after the meeting, and then you can take your time and you could easily add comments to it. And edit that document as you see fit. And I think if you can review that before our April meeting, so that gives you plenty of time to review it and see if there's any information that you think is missing. There's a couple of different sections that are in there. You could even compare it to the last RFI that WISPALS sent out if you'd like, or I don't know, if there's any information that you feel that needs to be included. And then at the April meeting, we can go through and discuss any of the comments and resolve those. And then I think maybe at the annual meeting in May, we can approve it. And then we could determine at that meeting and have a conversation at that meeting who we'd like to send it to. Does that sound like a good idea? Does that sound like a bad idea?
I think it sounds like a great idea. And I think you did a really good job on writing it as well. Looked it over and I thought it just a great look at what we do and what we're expecting.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Thanks for taking a look at it already. All right, so I think maybe even at the April meeting too, and I'll put this in Basecamp along with a link to the Google Doc, because I think that'll be easier for you to be able to just put comments in it. I'll just throw out there to start thinking about different vendors, if they're, who you would like to maybe have us submit this to. Can't talk this morning, who you would like to hear from. So, okay, if everyone's comfortable with that process, that's what we'll do. So after this meeting, I will send that stuff and put it in Basecamp, and that will be our process. April will review, address all of the comments and issues. and begin talking about different vendors, and then at the May meeting, the membership meeting, will vote to approve the RFI and then finalize who we would like to send it to. So, all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Melody. Annie, what is the news on WAL?
Okay. So there is kind of news, but I don't know where it's gone. So I think back in January, there was a WLA newsletter that had a call for a planning committee for WAL 2023. But it was, I don't know if anybody saw it. It was on like page 9 of the newsletter. It wasn't in the like introduction. And then the website has not been updated. And when we talked to Laura Saucer, the WLA president, back in December, it was still sort of up in the air about what was going to happen with WAL. So I was hoping that once we had that call for a planning committee, that we would have a conference, but I haven't heard anything yet. So no news, I guess. There's developments, but nothing substantial. I don't know if there was not even a date in the call for a planning committee. There was not any dates for the conference given. So I don't know if potentially they're thinking of moving it to later in the year, if that's up in the air. Because normally it is, mid to late April, which is only 2 months away now. So I don't have any more information than that. Any thoughts? Like, do we just kind of drop it for 2023? If we get a date, we can bring it back to the group to see if it's something we want to participate in, or kind of put it on hold until more information is known. Just kind of what we did back in November when we talked about this.
I think we were at that like UW mini conference thing that WAL put on.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and maybe I got this wrong, but I feel like they did say something about it, that there was not going to be a conference this year, and they were replacing it with kind of these mini visits. Does that sound right, Kim, or did I just make that up? Maybe I made it up. But I got the vibe that there was absolutely not going to be a conference. So that's interesting that Laura was like, it's in the air. Because I don't know.
I don't either.
And then at last year's WAL, they did say they were looking at going to an every other year model. So that's all I know.
Okay. Well, here's what we'll do. If there's a development, I will keep my eyes open. I check back every couple of weeks. We have ongoing conversations with Laura, so we can keep asking if there's any developments too. But as soon as there's like a glimmer of anything happening, I'll let you know, and we'll figure out how we're going to participate. I did want to draw attention. I don't know if you saw this, but WAL is hosting a conversation later this month, I think the 28th, about sort of the role of academic libraries and all the book challenge nonsense. I guess that's very loaded thing to say all the book challenges that are going on are in school and public libraries. I'm not able to attend, but I wanted to make sure I got out to this group. And if you didn't see that, I'll share more information. But I think just a virtual kind of brown bag for a conversation. So that's, I mean, WISPALS doing things. They're just doing these smaller things.
Yeah, I went to the last 2 chats and they were really good. They're doing these like periodic lunch chats and I really enjoyed it. They give you like content to either listen to like a podcast or read an article beforehand. And I found them very helpful. So
Great.
second that.
Great. Okay, so hopefully more soon on that one. I can just blow right into the next one, Katie, if you're cool with that. All right. So this is also in response to kind of feedback we gathered from you all last year about how we can improve the project management component of WISPALS. And one of them was there's a lot of documents and things that we share and they are hard to find. So Melody and I have created what we're calling the consortium compendium because we think it sounds like a Harry Potter spell. And it is a finding aid, really. It's a link, a reference document to all the things you need for WISPALS. So we have meeting information, all the annual reports, budgets, ILS resources, things that the kind of the subcommittees have developed, the Instructional Services Committee and Tech Services and User Services Committee. And we categorize them in these general categories. And it's still growing. I literally added something to it like 2 days ago that I realized wasn't on here. So this will just be your one place to go. You don't need to know if it's living in a coda, if it's living in Basecamp, if it's somewhere else, you just need to go here. And if there is anything on here you can't find, contact us and we will locate it, add it here, or get it to you some other way. But do note that some of these things are not available to everybody, all of your staff. Some of these things are on the Basecamp that's only available to executive committee members. And what we want, hoping to do is to kind of share this in the most broad place possible. So that would be as a pinned message on the top of the shared Basecamp. And that's where this would live. And that would be like this place to go for it. But we did want to make sure that there are people who have access to that Basecamp that won't have access to all the links here on the list. So all of that said, what do you think? Is this going to be helpful? Are there concerns or questions you have? Melody, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, so by shared Basecamp, Indy means the resource library Basecamp. So when you go to the resource library Basecamp, you can pin a message. So it would always be the top message. So it's not going to live here on a Google Doc where nobody can find it. It would just be in a pinned message in the resource library we're at the very top. So, and the links would just always live there. We thought that would make the most sense because every time you have a change in a staff member, we always add them to that resource library. So everyone should have access to the resource library Basecamp. And we thought that might be the best place to put it. Does that make sense? I don't know. We just wanted to be in the best place that makes the most sense for everyone.
Well, we have one comment from Hans. He says it's brilliant.
Thanks,
And
Hans.
I also think this is absolutely amazing.
Yay, good. Glad it's going to be useful. And it will.
I was gonna say, we can try the location too. And if that doesn't work out for a while, we can change it. But we'll try it there in the resource library as a pinned message for a while and see how it goes.
Thank you for your work on that. That's a lot of putting pieces together, but I think it looks really helpful.
Thanks. And it will, like I said, it will evolve too. There will be growth here. And if you see missing things where you're like, I'm hunting for this link and it isn't in the consortium compendium and you have to do magic hands, and then you just let Melody and I know and we'll add it. Thanks, everyone.
All right, so moving on to bylaws. The Performance Evaluation Committee had met with Will to just look at the bylaws initially. And Amy, can you pull up the bylaws I'm looking? There's just like kind of 3 small changes that were initially suggested. One being the change of gender pronoun under consortium board of directors. Another was changing the description of the rotation schedule. So just to make it a little bit more clear that our annual meeting happens at the home institution of whoever's chair that year on our executive committee. And then under section 7, the addition of the word shared, just to help clarify, because we also have our cooperative purchasing costs for the library. So just to make that part a little bit clearer. So we just wanted to open this up to both those initial suggestions that were made, as well as if there's anything else related to the bylaws that someone would want to have a discussion. Is everyone in favor of those suggested changes? Head nodding, thumbs up. Okay. Andy, I forget you told me this, but do we need to take a vote officially on this?
Yeah,
Okay.
on this one, yes,
So
please.
we'll be looking for a motion to approve the changes to the bylaws.
For the meeting, as I said, I have brain fog. Is it said that the meeting will be held at the host, the library of the current president? Is that what it said?
Of the executive committee chair.
Do we want to say or their designee in case they're doing renovations that year and it's not practical to hold it at that point?
Yeah, we could certainly add that and give some flexibility. Does anybody have a concern about adding that? So it would be, will be at the home institution of the WISPALS Executive Committee chair or their designee.
I'll move to approve the bylaws as presented and as suggested recently.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Hans, Ken, also Catherine, for the suggestions. All in favor of approving the bylaws with the recommendations and the new suggestions, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we have our new bylaws. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Indiana or Melody, onto our project manager report.
I don't think we have a whole lot to update. Just a quick reminder, if you didn't get a chance to look at it, on March 14th overnight, we're going to get a update from Sierra 5.4 to 5.6. So I'll send out a reminder in advance, but just when you start Sierra the next day, so that Wednesday, it'll take a little bit longer to launch. And I did include a link to some of the new features that will come with that update. And then a couple weeks after that, we'll also be updating Encore as well. But I'll send out a notification when that happens, and then any changes or new features with that as well. I don't think we really have anything else to share there. Yep, thanks.
Does anyone have any questions on the project manager report or Sierra? Okay. So we're on to the fun agenda point of appreciations or celebrations. Is there anything anyone would like to share?
I just really appreciated everyone's contribution to the laptop question that kind of snowballed into a lot of other really helpful things for me. I'm just so happy to have other librarians to discuss these issues with and that bring that perspective. Really helpful. I'm on the Next Generation Learning Committee, so that's part of what prompted some of those follow-up questions from me, and we're actually having a discussion today about continuing the laptop loan program, and I just feel so much more prepared knowing more institutional context and what other colleges are doing. So my initial tiny question that was more like about short-term loans just really became a really robust discussion, and I really appreciate it. Well, thank you all so much.
I just wanted to celebrate that I have successfully moved us from Blackboard to Canvas, and I can get back to doing library work now.
Congratulations. That's a big thing.
You like it, Kim?
Yes, I like Canvas.
Okay.
It's really easy to use. I'm just glad that I'm not the one answering all the Canvas questions anymore. And we have a team now. I've been able to transition all of that to the people who own the LMS. And but it is nice because I still have admin powers and I'm able to do all sorts of neat things for the library in Canvas. So I'm not going to let them know. I'm going to be very quiet about all the sneaky stuff I'm doing in Canvas right now for the library.
That's amazing, Kim. Does anyone have any challenges or ideas that they'd like to share at this point in time?
This might be a Moraine Park problem, but has anyone had experience with renewing their WISCAT license for the new year? I seem to have missed an email. The website is, WISCAT is a statewide interlibrary loan deal. It's $200 a year. Their website's not updated. I'd reached out to them, no response. Anyone else dealing with that?
So if my memory serves, there's no renewal license this year, but there's a survey to update their information. Is that what everybody else did?
Oh,
Thank
I thought
you.
it was every year.
I'll find the email. Give me a minute.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing this morning, that I haven't seen something come through.
Now I got $200 to spend. All right.
This is on a separate, but a promise that I'm keeping. So I had been talking with Elizabeth from Wisconsin DPI And they are just looking for, they want to make sure that our WISPALS consortium is sort of in the loop on things in terms of BadgerLink and their services. So she had asked if I would pass along sort of their two main sources of information that they send out to our, broadly, but to share that with our group. So I'll post that on Basecamp right afterwards, but the one is BadgerLink Bulletin. You can subscribe to, and that will give you the latest updates about everything BadgerLink. And the other is Wisconsin Libraries for Everyone, and that is their newsletter. So that goes a little bit beyond just BadgerLink. So I will post those links in Basecamp after this, so that's a permanent way to get back to those links. I know I follow both of them. I found it to be helpful. Whenever there's been like a change in the database through BadgerLink, it's been great to know about that. Some of the things that are going on Wisconsin-wide with libraries, it's been fun to see that through their newsletter. And when they sent out the, hey, we're putting together a committee and we want representation from all these different types of libraries, they had sent that out through their newsletter too. And somehow felt that they had kind of missed our technical college group. So if you haven't subscribed to those, it's a great source of information. Like I said, I'll just share them out after the meeting.
Thanks, Katie. And I forget who it was who mentioned something about the wall lunches. And I think our library was a member of WAL at some point in the past, but maybe isn't now. So, but I'm wondering how to get connected with those lunches. Someone wants to share a link or some way of doing that.
I can do that, Madeline. I kind of talked about those. I know I missed a couple because I wasn't on their listserv. So let me find it and I'll send it to you.
Okay. Is there anything else that anyone would like to bring up at this time? We actually are on a schedule with our meetings. So we might even be able to give you time back today. But I'd love to open it up for, if there's other discussion points that people have.
Sorry for briefly sharing my internal Slack that we're really excited about your conversations. We're just really happy for you guys.
Could have been worse.
Yeah, it was a very positive.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry, I was finding that email for Hans, but I'm getting a bunch of questions about copyright and course materials and course packs. We're in the transition process to a new bookstore vendor. And so instructors are going through materials in a way that they have not in a really long time. So I'm curious if anybody has materials that they've already made for instructor education about what is and is not best practice for course packs. If you do, I would love you to send it my way. If not, I think I'm probably going to be making some. So.
I don't have any advice for you because we kind of deal with that often, not necessarily packs, but people either want to interloan an article and try and distribute it on their class or put it on their Canvas page. And so I think too, we need something or some type of, I don't know, so maybe if we all had similar verbiage or something, just so that people are understanding, you can't, if we interloan something, it's for you to use individually. It's not to be mass distributed on your LMS for students to use and stuff like that.
Thank you. And thanks, Kim. And it looks like Katie, that looks really helpful.
Ours is much, Kim's is much more robust than ours is. The most that we have on course packs is just part of that various checklist and kind of noting where we think that sort of falls within that evaluation. That was a great question, Helen. Anyone else? Last things from Liz?
Nothing here.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. This was a great meeting, and I got to get 15 minutes back to your day, so that's great. Our next meeting will be on Wednesday, April 19th at 9 a.m.
Thanks,
Have a good rest
everyone.
of your morning.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Take care.
Bye.